Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar, 5 Ways to Improve Your Fab Shop with eVolve Materials. Thank you for spending some time with us today. This webinar is brought to you by eVolve MEP. My name is Ashley Danahy, and I am the Product Marketing Specialist for eVolve MEP. Before we get started today, I'll go through some webinar housekeeping. We encourage you to take advantage of the fully customizable webinar console by clicking on the icons at the bottom of your screen. You can resize any of these widgets during the presentation. Don't forget to type your questions and comments into the Q&A widget. We'll take time throughout the webinar to answer your questions. You can also take the survey at any time during or after the webinar. This webinar will be recorded for your convenience. You will be receiving an email with a recording link for future reference. You can find eVolve MEP on social media to make meaningful connections, receive special offers, and stay up to date on the newest innovations. Also, be sure to visit our website, evolvemep.com, to improve profitability and visibility for trade contractors by aligning teams on a single platform. And with that being said, I will turn it over to Clay Smith, Chief Executive Officer of eVolve MEP.
Great. Thank you, Ashley. Appreciate it. We're glad that everybody's here today. Thanks for taking a few minutes of your afternoon to let us show you some of the things we've been looking at or working on. Like Ashley said, I'm Clay Smith, CEO of eVolve MEP. And this is not going to have a lot to do with technology today, but it's kind of in keeping with what we do with MEP Force and other efforts that we are fully committed to helping the MEP industries move forward in all kinds of areas. And so this is going to be a great conversation with one of our customers, Cleveland Electric, Andy Bowman. And so I will first introduce a few folks, and then we'll let Andy introduce himself and talk about his background and the project we've been working on. And Steve and Andy will have a great conversation. So James Simpson is a product manager on the mechanical side, and so I'll let James give a quick introduction to himself.
Thank you, Clay. Yeah, so product manager, obviously here at eVolve MEP. A lot of you guys probably know me from that role previously, actually from industry. Got started really young and just general detailing, right, BIM workflows. And, you know, as you guys know, that obviously also leads to fab shops and all that downstream, right? So very familiar with fab shops, workflows, especially on the mechanical side from that time. So really kind of excited to see what we dig into today.
Great, thank you. Steve, how about you?
Yeah, so Steve King, Materials Product Manager. Thanks for joining us today. I came from industry, so I spent about 35 years working for an electrical contractor and about 10 years stretch of owning my own company before coming back. But basically over the last 10 to 15 years, I've had laser focus on design to fabrication workflows, building fab shops, and the entire process of basically designing it to delivering a production order to the field. So I joined eVolve about a year and a half ago to build our first materials cloud product. So good to be with you today. Thanks, Steve.
And Andy, would you give us your bio and then kind of introduce us to Cleveland Electric a little bit and talk about some of the things that you guys have done through the years to get to where you are now?
So I'm Andy Bowman. I've been in the electrical trade for 40 years now. I know my title says Field Services Manager. I'm still a part of Field Services, but I am now the prefab manager. I've moved into that position. And so Cleveland is a family-owned company, been around since 1925. As far as I'm concerned, I've been here 25 years, and it's always been a pretty forward-thinking company for the most part. And they do a lot of, our work set is really, we do a lot of different kinds of work. We don't necessarily just focus on one thing. So we're pretty broad on what we do. And we've actually had a fabrication shop the whole time I've been here, but it's just very small. Just kind of got started out, and now we're trying to make it a lot larger and a lot more efficient and things like that.
Great. Thank you, Andy. And I'm sure we'll ask you more questions about things that you guys did right and wrong as we get further into the discussion. So we appreciate you being here and being a great customer, and appreciate your willingness to share what you've learned with other people in the industry. Not everybody is willing to do that, so we certainly appreciate that. Ashley, before we get to Steve and start going through the 5 steps, you may have explained it already, but do you want to brief everybody a little bit on how to use the chat window so that we can get some questions when the time's right?
Yeah, definitely. So in the Q&A widget, you guys will all see in the console on the bottom of your screen, you can just type in any question, and James will actually be monitoring that throughout the webinar. So we will go into and answer those questions. And also just feel free to introduce yourselves as well.
Yep. And with this platform, I don't think we can take you off of mute. So the only way we can talk to you is through that chat box. So feel free to put in some questions or comments as we go along. With that, Steve, why don't you take it and lead us through the 5 steps?
Awesome. So I do have a couple quick questions before we get into the 5 ways to improve the fab shop for Andy. But my hope for today is that we can have a good open discussion, and that everybody on the call will take away something. There's a lot of people on the call that have a lot of experience, and maybe some just starting out, maybe some have been doing it like Andy for 20 years. But the process of improvement never ends, and so there's always something that can be learned from our peers and from people that have been in the business for quite a long time. So that's what I hope we get out of today's discussion. But Andy, I wanted to ask you, back in July, we had the privilege of touring your facility there to begin the process and talk about the facility improvements and the process improvements with your advisory team. And I'm wondering if you could just give us some background on why the advisory team was formed and what their main objective was. After being in fabrication for 10 years, you decided that it was time to make some changes. So can you kind of give our audience some insight as to what that advisory team's mission was?
So like any mission, right, the object of the game is to become more efficient, more profitable, of course, right? But efficiency was the big part of it. We have a large BIM team. We have a pretty nice facility, a pretty large facility for our fab shop. And so you put all these things together, and if they're not all working together, then you're not necessarily getting the best product, right? It's not anybody's fault. It's just a matter of just getting everybody to put the lines down and, hey, let's go to here, to here, to here. So the team was put together, and one of the main objectives was standardization. So we started out trying to standardize the material we were using. The BIM department worked really hard to standardize how they're putting drawings out. I mean, all this is still a work in progress. I don't want everybody to think, hey, we're finished. It's still a process. And so in doing that, we did start working with eVolve on the MEP, which helped us tremendously on the drawings and also in the fab shop. So standardization of material, how we engineer it. We even have estimating that comes into this, and they're trying to standardize. They're working on new software and ways to estimate, and of course how we get this to the prefabrication, and also how we're going to get it out to the job site. So that's kind of how that group got put together.
And Andy, just background, sorry to jump in, but give us a little bit of insight into Cleveland in terms of how many folks work for Cleveland, if you can, how many are in your BIM shop, that kind of thing.
So, we normally run completely about almost 1,000, right at 1,000 people. That's pretty much the size of, it's about 900 field people, 100 people kind of support. So the BIM department's about 30. It's up to about 31 guys now. It's kind of split up into little groups, but pretty large BIM department's very important to what we're doing.
How many people work in the prefab shop?
So currently I have about 55 guys in the prefab shop.
Okay.
Now we also have a mechanical division, so we have a mechanical part of that also.
Got it. Thanks. Sorry, Steve. Keep
Nice.
going.
No worries. Just to wrap it up, and then we'll jump in, Andy. As I remember our discussions, when we first started talking, you guys had wanted to, bring another 20 or 30 employees to the fab shop, and we had some really good discussions around that. And we started to talk about the importance of thinking like a manufacturer would, and that had caused you to do some things that you weren't doing before, really focus on process and workflows. Can you give us some comments on the importance of really thinking like a manufacturer as opposed to just maybe sometimes it feels like it's a job site in a box? Is there a difference between a fab shop and a manufacturer?
Totally, 100% difference. And I think that's the problem. One of the things when you first everybody starts their prefab. We're just building widgets and things, and so. But if you go into a manufacturing, in which we're fortunate enough, we worked in automobile manufacturing facilities and things like that, you soon realize that less is better as far as people, and that sounds bad, but you're really trying to be very efficient on how you get the material to people, get it put out, use as many machines as you can, use the proper tools, don't have people wandering around looking for things. So the manufacturing, that's to me, that's my whole gear now, is I got to gear my whole thought process on a manufacturer and no longer electrical work, right? It's a manufacturing facility.
Yeah, it causes you to think a little differently and even get into the marketplace and search out machinery and advanced machinery that can actually produce. Because when you're building, 10 widgets, that's one thing. When you're building 100,000 of them over a year period, that's another thing entirely. So, I mean, that's, really, really nice to think like a manufacturer.
Right.
So Andy,
awesome. So, yeah, go ahead, Clay.
Yep. Andy, let's talk just for a second a little bit more about the culture there at Cleveland. I imagine that when you guys set up the fab shop the first time, I'm just guessing here, if you're like most contractors, the whole company didn't switch and all of a sudden embrace prefab or embrace doing more things in the shop and all that kind of stuff. So talk to us a little bit about that journey in terms of how the culture has changed and how you continuously improved and brought people on board.
Yeah, I mean, I think the mindset and the thought process is really a big part of what we're trying to do is getting buy-in. And so the funny thing is really trying to get even upper management sometimes. And this is no cut down. This should probably be true in every company, is that you got to get that top to see the advantages of doing it and then push it down. We tend to try to push it up. So like I said, we've had a fab shop for a long time, and the previous job I had, they sat me down and said, look, you really got to get a fab shop built for us. So I started working on it, and hey, Clay, you're exactly right. I mean, you think everybody's behind you to do it, but there's always a lot of resistance, because I think sometimes on the outside it looks like you're double doing things, or why? We've always done it this way, right? So yeah, it's been a big process to get from the upper management all the way out to the field forces to understand the importance of getting this facility, getting our BIM department facility and everything else to coexist with everybody.
And from our previous conversations, we talked a little bit about how what worked eventually was not trying to boil the ocean, right? But trying to find some place, some some part of it that you could focus on and do that really well. And that's how you converted more and more people. And then you could grow that to the next area and the next area and the next area. Is that right?
Yeah, you gotta. I found out, you can't just throw everything in here and just go make everybody do it. You got to start small, work on it, work on the processes. Believe it or not, our welding shop was a big part of that, to try to get some of our people to understand we can make a lot of things for them and it is efficient. So absolutely, it's definitely take a chunk of it, make it better, get the guys in the field to see how much better it is, and now you're on your way. I mean, we use y'all software on our conduit bending, and it's just amazing how much better the field accepts the fact that we're bending all the larger bore conduit in here, and they love it.
Well, I appreciate you plugging eVolve for us. Talk to me just a little bit about what are you receiving from the BIM department now that you weren't getting before you had eVolve? And then, Steve, I'm going to let you have it after this. Sorry.
No problem. No worries.
So we've always gotten spool sheets, but it was more of a, whether we want to admit it or not, the software was more mechanical based. And so even though you were getting the spool sheets, they weren't necessarily that efficient for us to do in here. Well, now using the eVolve software, the MEP, you're building all your families and you're building all that stuff. So it's easier for the BIM department to spit these spool sheets out. And then when they come to us, all you got to do is put the marks from a spreadsheet on a piece of conduit and you got it. I mean, it's not all this study and drawings. We're working off spreadsheets. We do have the drawings available to our guys, but we're able to bend all this conduit. It tells us where to mark the pipe. So it's pretty amazing.
Great. Thank you. All right, Steve, I'm not going to interrupt anymore at least for a minute or two. How about that?
I'll dive in. All right. So let me share my screen and we'll get started. Here we go. So can you guys see my screen now?
Yep, we got it.
All right. So I just wanted to, we have a discussion around some ways that you can improve your fab shop. And these are some topics. They're, we dive deeper into some than others, but in no particular order of importance. It just depends on where you are. And again, my hope is that maybe one of these things will strike a bell with you, and you can make an improvement in your shop. I know the improvement is tough, but it's something that when I was running my shop, I just had to continually push for and make time to improve. So if you don't take the time to improve, it's just not going to get better on its own. So reducing the use of tape measures here, some visual management, talking about nonverbal type communication that can be used in a fab shop, but work cells, the importance of a work cell and kind of why they matter. Number 4, really taking a look at tool boards, but a lot of you probably have tool boards or have built some form of a tool board. I took a little different spin on it and put a ticket and tag on that tool board, which we'll jump into. And then lastly, number 5, really 2 important standards that I found that I couldn't live without in my fab shop. So we'll just jump right in here and take a look at the reduce the use of tape measures. So really, during repetitive tasks and things like that, the pulls of the tape measure, kill you over time. So if you're cutting hundreds and hundreds of parts and pieces, and then, measuring, marking, cutting, that type of stuff is really increases the labor and inefficiency of that operation. And the accuracy and the errors and inconsistencies that come from that. So we would have quite a few QA issues when we were trying to, cut things that had to be controlled dimensioned, plus or minus 1/8 inch, something like that. Sometimes you would end up with a whole mess out there, and you'd often wonder, can the guys even read a tape measure? Sometimes it would seem like, but so you just don't know, and it also increases that material handling. So you really want to try to find ways to minimize those tape measures. You can't eliminate them, but you can reduce the use of the tape measure, and I think that's what the point of this is here. So I wanted to put together a few techniques that we use. Some of you are probably doing this. The adhesive tape measures, and those can be affixed to your jigs or tables and things like that eliminate that tape measure pull. So you can, here you see a piece of conduit being marked to a dimension. They're cheap. They're available in any lengths, widths, graduations, however you want that scale to look, you can buy them. And I think in the shop you can find ways to affix these things to your tables. And so here you have a bending station. I hope this young man's not on our call, but I'm a fan of his tape measure, but I'm not a fan of the organization here. But the importance of this is that bending table has that mark, that tape measure there. So you don't even see in this example, in this image, where he has a tape measure on that table. And that allows him to mark that and cut that pipe faster. One of the things I am a fan of, and I'm not working for any of these things, and I'm not promoting their products. I use them here as an example. Manual measuring systems that are out there. This original saw company happens to have some ones that I really like, and these stop systems, these manual stop systems, increase that productivity and eliminate the cut line marking. So if you're repetitively cutting the same length of a product, a piece of strut, piece of pipe, whatever it is, you can set these stops to the desired length and just continually cut. So it eliminates the tape measure pull, and it eliminates that cut line marking. And the nice thing about these is they are really pretty flexible. They have 4, 6, and 8 foot sections that you can join together to cover the length of any table, and also go left and right on the table, left side cut or right side cut, whatever you want. And they have fixed and flip top systems here. I prefer like the flip top, where you can buy additional flip top stops, and you can set one to 2 feet, 4 feet, 5 feet, and just flip them up and then just go to your next set of cuts without measuring. So these are kind of really good products that you can use to get rid of that tape measure in some areas. And here's a cutting station. They also sell complete cutting stations, but here's an example of one that's built out on a chop saw. But the important thing is here, it doesn't matter what saw is on top of that. It could be a cold saw, it could be a band saw, it could be whatever. These tables can be adjusted in height and set up on just about anything. So you can run these type of stops and systems into pretty much any kind of production machinery that you have in the shop. I guess the last one that would be out there, which I'm a huge fan of, is the automated linear positioning systems that require really no setup time, and it goes a step further in eliminating the manual stop block. So this is a type of system that runs, it moves, it can pull and push a product through a machine. Again, it really doesn't matter what that machine is. It can pull it or push the product through it and stop automatically, and be calibrated and then stop automatically. And really, one of the things I like about it is the cut list optimization and bundling features. And so you can either manually input cut list data, or you can download that cut list data. And the cascading part of the system allows you to merge those cut lists together into a queue. And so you can move from one job to the next job to the next job, and the machine is just continually cycling. It's pushing, it's cutting, it's pushing, it's cutting, and it's automatically tracking the number of cuts that are required for that particular length. So the really cool thing about that is the operator of that saw really doesn't need to know much about it other than just put the shortest stock in first. So if you have some cuts that are laying around, you want to use them up, you just put the shortest ones in first, and the system will optimize all of those cuts. But over here on the right is just an example from Tiger Stop, and the manual stop on the left, where it took a production time of 1 hour 41 minutes, was really just they were processing wood cuts for cabinetry, and so the in that manual process, the operator would measure with his tape measure, mark, cut, and then label with a pencil what it was that he cut. And then they pushed it to the manual Tiger Stop, and it reduced that time significantly to 1 hour and 8 minutes. And then finally, they ran the same exact production job with the automated positioning system, with the operator just entering the stock to the machine and the machine moving it and cutting all of it. And so they went from 1 hour 41 minutes to 24 minutes for that same production order. That's significant. And so if you have these type of tasks where you're doing this thing time and time again, these systems really should be considered, as a way to improve that processing time. And I think, it goes to the overall, purpose is to become more efficient in our fab shop. We obviously know we're more efficient in the field right now, but we can still get even higher levels of efficiencies for that. So there's some videos out there for Tiger Stop, and you can go look at these online. But this system you see here in this video, in this photograph, is really is pushing that product, that conduit, through that cold saw and automatically clamping that vise. So you can also connect the system to the pressure stops. And so when that gets to its desired cut length, we'll close that clamp and cut that automatically. So these are really good systems that can be used inside your fab shop. So let me just stop sharing there for 1 second, and we can have some discussion or any questions around that type of process. So Andy, I know you guys had we had talked about your pipe bending shop. I know you had went out and take a look at some cold saws and are getting some cold saws. What's your thoughts on that positioning type systems out there, and what we're trying to talk about here, and reducing the use of that tape measure?
Oh yeah, anytime you can put stops in, put templates, bucks, whatever you want to call it, when you're mass producing things, it definitely cuts the time down tremendously. So we are changing over to cold saws. We were using chop saws. We're going to go back to the shears for the unistrut, and mostly we're trying to buy a pre-cut strut as much as we possibly can. And we do have new band saws, so we're trying to get away from the chop saw, get into the band saws, the cold saws, and shears. And then, like I said, our goal is to get most of our strut cut for us.
Yeah, that's it's kind of cool. You mentioned the shear. That shear is a nice cutting tool for that strut, and you can run that Tiger Stop right through that shear. So if you set that shear on a table and you set that Tiger Stop up, you can program your cut list, and that'll run it right through that shear. And so it really is. It can be set up on a lot of things. You can even set that up on punch presses and whatever you need a measurement for that you have repetitive tasks on. You can be creative in the way that you set that machine up to push or pull product through basically almost anything. So it's really flexible and really time saving. And if none of that matters, it's really accurate. So it allows you to, if you're building something that has tight tolerances, and then you need some accuracy, in that cut. So you can't be off a 1/4 inch or this or that. So that's when it really comes into play. Cool. Well, I think James, you're monitoring the chat, so I'll just keep on going here. Let me reshare.
There was one question
Sure.
about Cleveland and whether or not in the BIM shop there, Andy, whether you guys use licensed technicians in the BIM shop, or are they non-electrical folks that you've taught the workflow?
The majority of our people in the BIM department are from the field. They're electricians from the field. That's the majority of our group. We do have some non-electrician, just drawing type detail people. We have a couple mechanical guys. So yeah, we pretty much use the field guys for that.
Yeah, and I was actually going to ask a question on that too, Andy. Like, generally, right, of like how I see a lot, oftentimes, like for instance, we'd use our fab shop as almost like a training ground before like the field itself, right? Kind of like use it almost as like a little mini apprenticeship before we actually send them out to the field. And I was, in a way, it was actually beneficial as a workflow into the BIM side as well. And so I didn't know if you had any anecdotal stuff on that of, you know, using kind of the shop as kind of a real, obviously, training ground as well for some of those other areas, just because you have to be so accurate at that point, right? And you really learn so much of the business in that environment.
Yeah, we definitely try to run our new hires that are really new to the game. We try to run them through the fab shop for a period of time to train them and get them, like you said. And then of course, you're also setting yourself up for success to do the prefab installations, and some of our best installers come out of the fab shop eventually, right?
Well, and I think it helps build trust as well, right?
Absolutely, 100%. You know, that, like you said, they see where it's being built. They built it. Now they're ready to install it, and
yeah, exactly.
And they're not fighting it, right? They're enjoying it.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Good. Steve, I think you better press on. We've got we're about halfway through. So.
Yep, I'm going to keep going here. Let me share again. You guys got that slide now?
Not yet. Just looking at Windows. I think you may have shared the wrong screen.
I did.
Just the desktop background. There you go.
Got me now?
Yep.
All right, cool. So we'll talk a little bit about visual management in the fab shop, things you can do. The key to all this is really the standards that you set for the fab shop. Without standards, you're going to struggle with processes. So it's really important that you start to begin to use these standards. And if you don't have any, it's probably just a real great time to get started on some type of standards. And there's many that you could have in your fab shop. But here's some like categories for those standards around floor markings, standards around inbound material. You know, what happens with the material when it comes in, when it's received, how is it marked, how is it packaged, how is it moved through the facility. That inbound material routing process is important. You know, what do we do with work in progress when it's in progress, and maybe it's going station to station, work cell to work cell? How is it marked? How do you know where to route it? Those type of things are standards that you can set out for operational standards in the facility to make things better. You know, racking in your warehouse, tool boards, cleaning stations, safety stations, they all have standards. What is right? And, you know, so when you immediately look at these things and they have standards, you can recognize, you know, what is right, what is wrong. And that's the key to it. And here just on the slide is really the most important thing about this. This slide is at the bottom there, the good visual controls really clearly and immediately notify everyone what the
Hey, Steve,
acceptable.
I don't mean to cut you off, bud. I think you accidentally quit sharing a minute ago.
Okay, let me see here. You have me back again?
There we go.
Now, yeah.
There you go.
Yep.
Okay.
Perfect.
Sorry about that. I don't know what happened, but
No worries.
on the so it really lets everybody understand what the proper condition should be in any given place in the fab shop. So here is just an example of it. You know, how do you know how to park that car, right? So the line is defining the standard. That is the standard, and so that line protects your car and it protects you, and it maximizes the number of cars that can be parked, right? Everybody knows this, and you don't have to be told how to park your car. So, you know, when you teach your child to drive for the first time, it's really pretty simple to teach them how to park a car, park it between the lines. It's about as simple as it is. But the most important thing here is that you're immediately recognizing when it's wrong. So we know that that orange car is not right. And so these are standards. And so this is just an example of a standard. Another example here are the markings at this pit stop on the race track. And this race really depends on getting that car out of that pit. And everybody on this team here knows the standard, they know their job, and they know exactly how to do it. So this is not obviously fabrication related, but it gets to the heart of these markings, and these markings, they mean something. So here, you know, you can see that those tires, you know, what happens if these tires don't get behind that line? You know, there's going to be a situation that could cost you the race. Those tires have to be behind that line. And that's what that line represents. And so that is nonverbal communication. They know to get that tire behind that line. They don't need to be told. And then you can see in the image on the right, you can see some nonverbal communication, which I'm a big fan of. I get tired of trying to tell people what needs to be done in a facility, especially if you get as big as Andy's and you got 60 people running around a 75,000 square foot fab shop. You can't be telling everybody what needs to be done. They have to know what should be done. And so here you could see the thumbs up on the left hand and right hand sides of that driver. When they get that signal, that car goes, and that's that. And so that's nonverbal communication to that race car driver that he's ready to get out of that pit. And this is kind of the efficiency that you get from these type of things. If you don't have standards, you have nothing, and you'll end up with chaos, and you'll fight every day to keep it under control if you can, but it's really difficult. So here is just an example of the floor marking standards that were adopted at Cleveland, and an overall type of tough to see view of their facility. But during this review process, they had defined these floor marking standards, what they mean, and where they're going to be used in the layout of their fab shop. So, you know, you can really take a look at what the striping means, so that you don't need to be told what it means. If the yellow striping is the forklift aisle, then there can be nothing left between that striping to stop the truck from moving from cell to cell. So these are kind of some floor marking standards that you could, I'm sure a lot of you have deployed in your facility, but they're really good for organization. There's a bunch of rules that should be set for those standards to show the exact condition. But this is a start to getting that floor marking standard developed. Some outbound marking standards here. So this photo on the right hand side is probably one of the best situations you might see for job packaging and organization in a facility. That is certainly first class packaging and readiness for the project. And it looks really well done. But so when you look at this photo, you say, well, that looks fantastic. But how can this be improved? You know, what is missing from this marking standard? There's a marking standard that is lacking here. And so if I looked at this and wanted to improve this situation, the pallet marking standard on the cage itself really defines the labeling requirements for that outbound fabrication, right? It tells you everything you need to know about that pallet and what's in it. And it also picks up the delivery locations and the field information, location breakdown structures on the job site where this material goes. So when you have the tag standard that says this is how the outbound material needs to be labeled, and then you can develop a system and a coding system to do this, and you're really just putting the information that's relevant to you. But the key to this is to be able to see it from the floor. When I first started and did some of this, I would have guys pull stuff down from the third rack just to see what the hell it was, and then we'd put it right back up there because it wasn't what we were looking for. So you can develop these marking standards and also apply them to the racking here. So the racking is clearly identified by position here, levels and positions. And so if you have a system that can track where this finished product is stored, you can key in those bin locations and get that information. But this is really telling you what's important here is the what, the where, and the when, and how many. And so you can create the labeling standard that gets put on these pallets before they get, while they're staged, before they get shipped out. So I guess we'll kind of jump into some discussions around work cells and why they're important. So company can have a shop, you can have multiple shops, and you can set up the work cells. The work cells really force you, if you're not using them, it forces you to start to think about the process that happens within the work cell. So what is this work cell for? What do we do here, typically do here, and what type of tasks and machines are required in that particular space? And so when you get into manufacturing systems and shop management systems, they will be able to take your work orders and route them into these work cells with the tasks and quantities and all the automation that you would want. But without the work cells, you're really not going to be able to chunk up your fab shop and get it broken down into little sections of where certain things are performed time and time again. So here's just an example of a work cell, a conduit bending work cell. And so here you can see a lot of things in play here. You can see the floor marking standards, not only in the aisleways, but within the internal work cells. This is Cleveland's new design, and they have, I think he has 7 881s in there with a 555 next to each 881, and then a conduit threading station next to it with a shared cut station in the middle. So there was a lot of thought around how this should be set up. What their current, I remember talking to Andy about this, and what their current workflow was. Where was the inbound material? Where does the finished product go? How do you get it to a cut area? All those things. And so we started to think like a manufacturer, and we started to build out these work cells and start to organize this conduit bending cell. And we can talk a little bit about that with Andy in a minute. But there was a lot of design considerations here for that. Floor markings, as I said, inbound material, really important. Where is the material that I need in that station? So getting the material to the guys in the work cell is of primary importance, obviously, and reducing that movement. So in the fab shop is different. It's not you're going to walk 45 feet or 100 feet or across the fab shop to go get some pipe or to get a cart. You really want to minimize the movement of man and machine. You have to start to optimize that and eliminate some of that unnecessary movement of people within the facility. So that's of prime importance of getting all the proper materials in the space. Cleveland has nice digital workstations there. They download their drawings to those stations and can bend that conduit without the need to print a lot of that stuff. Tool boards in the work cells, all the materials required to make those bends. The tools are there. So just a lot of considerations in that design. And then lastly would be like scrap and waste management. I see it often in fab shops that is not a focus of people's efforts. A lot of times you'll find plenty of garbage cans around the place, but you'll find plenty of scrap and waste under every table and in every corner of the facility. And that is a condition that you just need to get a hold of. So one of the big considerations when we look at the design with Cleveland is, how do you get rid of that scrap and waste? And what do we do with it? What's the standards around getting that stuff taken care of in the facility? Here, I know this is in progress, but Andy has sent me some images of some of the process that I guess some of the arrangement of the work cells. Not quite finished here, but a lot of good things are happening. It's organized in the way it's supposed to be. They're starting to build out some tool boards here, and some of the workstations or computers are all set up here. So here's just a little shot of what that is looking like. We are employing vertical conduit storage there, so that is in that layout. So it's kind of like the minimum stock requirements are here, so that you can get, I think this might be a week's worth of supply or something like that, whatever it's going to be. But really getting that location ironed out, getting the sizes all organized, and getting the stock, ultimately getting that stock in here, and having a process of refilling that. Outside of the conduit bending area is the outside storage areas. And so here you can see some in-progress work where they've reorganized that and are now starting to bring that in onto big racking and getting it organized. I think before, maybe, Andy, that was all on the ground. I'm not sure, but much improved on that.
Absolutely.
So Andy, how about maybe you could talk a little bit about that work cell before we jump into toolboards, and maybe some of the improvements that you're seeing now from what it was before and to what it is becoming now. What's the feeling in the shop? What's the feeling in management? Are we picked up efficiencies? What's going on around that?
So as far as the first thing is the guys that work in there, that maybe they were hesitant at first, but now they love it. They got plenty of room to work. They don't have other tasks that are being mixed in with them. It's their space. It belongs to them. Their material is stored in the back, and all they got to do is stock it inside, which isn't very far away. And so everything's within proximity, and they know where it's at, the carts, where the material's stored, where their computer is. They're not sharing computers. They each station has its own computer. Mm-hmm. And it's definitely picked up pace, and we're not disturbing them anymore. They're back there and they're doing their thing, and then bringing buggies full of bent conduit up to the front. So it's definitely a big improvement. Yeah,
I remember when that was being designed, that you had your fab manager Gray take a look at the initial layout. He built it to scale, set it up, tested it, changed it a couple times. We finally landed on what the ultimate design was for that individual cell, because you have 7 bender setups that are exactly the same. So there was a process behind actually getting that correct, and tested it prior to actually laying down all that work cell and striping that is going to ultimately get put down on that floor.
Right. And we're pretty fortunate because we got enough area. We don't like changing shoes over on the benders. We like the stations to focus on that size pipe, and that's helped tremendously too. Just not having all the shoe changes and things.
Yeah, the setup of the machine, changing the shoes takes an awful lot of time there. We didn't touch on the work cell, but I think another purpose of the work cell, and I don't have anything here in this slide deck to really show that, is is the ownership of that work cell. So when you have a facility as big as yours, and 14 some odd work cells, or maybe more, I don't know, but really the next step to that work cell would be, there's always somebody in that conduit bending area, for example, that knows everything about everything in that area. Like, he's been there for a long time, he's your top guy in that area. Really assigning that cell to him is the way to get them to keep that area clean and keep it in the condition that it's supposed to be in. So once you develop standards around how the cleanup is going to be, what it's going to look like every day, do you leave that table a mess? Do you put the tools back on the tool board? Do you clean up every day? Those are standards. And when you have a work cell, you can assign a lead or a lead guy to that. And his responsibility is to maintain that single work cell. And so if you have a guy that's responsible for 14 work cells, then your fab shop foreman is not responsible for cleaning that shop all the time. Like, it has to be managed by tasks assigned to others in the fab shop. When you have 60 people, you just end up in a condition that is out of control. Is that something that makes sense, or you think that you might be moving towards?
Yeah, I mean, as you were here, and that's what we had. We had too many tasks being done too close together, and nobody's space was owned. Like I said, we didn't have work cells, right? We might have thought we did, but we really did. And so once you set it up into work cells, like you said, now you put somebody in charge of it. You make him responsible for keeping it clean. Pretty soon, he's making all his people. And then when somebody from another work cell tries to put something in his area, he's quick to get him out of there. It's
yeah. He says, "No way, get that thing out of here."
Yeah, it sounds bad, but
it's not going to happen, man.
Yeah, once you get that guy to start owning that space as he is, and understanding it's okay to go tell him to not come in there, and to it's the only way you can manage it. Before it was just a big shop with a lot of stuff going on. Now it's the work cell. Everything's there. Hey, you keep your people here. You can keep up with them and make sure everybody does the same. So yeah, it's much better.
That's great. All right, we're moving close to time, so I'm going to get through tool boards here. I just wanted to show you guys the tag system, really, which is the most important. You have these tool boards, and they can save significant time chasing down materials. These tool boards can be in the work cells. They should only really have or contain the required tools to perform the task that's in that cell. You got to get rid of toolboxes or gang boxes full of stuff that you can't find when you need it, and get to some organized method here. I mean, this is a high-level tool board from Land Rover, one of their mechanic stations, obviously. But the one on the right, you can see the condition immediately. Nobody needs to tell you there's something wrong with that packaging area tool board. And what's wrong with it is there's nothing on it. It's all gone. So, what happened to my tape gun? What happened to my box cutter? Oh, I got to walk across the shop. Somebody stole it. I mean, you spend all this time trying to hunt this stuff down. And the shadowing is what's most important here. The shadowing tells you when something is missing. So if it's in a toolbox, it's a mess of a toolbox. You don't know what's missing and what you need. And you're going to find that a lot of time is being spent, even in the fab shop, trying to track down tools to get a particular task done. So here is just a little quick example of a shipping station that has been set up with all the things that are required for shipping to wrap and do those type of tasks. Whatever it is, it's just you can make tool boards for any process, really. But the thing about this is really that I come to realize is, how many times are you going to ask somebody to tell you when they take the last one? Like, we're always running out of stuff, or we need this tape for this tape gun, and nobody told us when they ran out. So this is how these tool boards work. On the right-hand tool board here, you can see everything's in order. There's something in every space that is supposed to be. So there's no problem with that condition right now. If you look at it now, then you see that there's no more film stretch wrap for that wrapping hand wrap tool. And so since we have so many things to pack for shipping every day, we can't be out of that particular product. So the product is gone, but there's a tag that sits behind it. And that's the importance of this concept, is that that tag tells you where to buy the product, how much to order, what the description is, what the catalog number is for that product. So I can't run out of this thing. So when I'm out, the workflow is, well, I've got that on another slide here. Hang on. So the workflow that, and the standard for this workflow was here, whoever takes the last item from the board is responsible for placing that tag in the tag inbox. And so you can have many tag inbox locations if you've got a big facility like Andy. But you collect those tags on a daily or weekly basis from the inbox. You can order the materials that are needed on that tag, and you can bring those tags, give those to the receiving department with the copy of the requisition or the PO, whatever was issued. And the idea is when the order is received, that they take and receive the order, they take the tags, they take it back to that tool board, they put the tag back on the tool board, and they put the new 4 rolls of stretch film in the tool board. So, and then I guess you can improve that if you have the same item on multiple tool boards, then you should just add the tool board name or location to the tag, so you know which area needs to be restocked. So this is really problem solving in a lean way too. It's not, okay, a lot of guys will say, hey, we have to have this tape and we use 500 rolls a year, so let's buy 500 rolls and throw it in the corner somewhere. That is not a good use of the company's cash. And so you really should only order what you're going to consume and then replace it when it's needed. So it's just a way of looking at those stations, those tool boards, and it can be anything on a tool board. It could be a bandsaw that requires a replacement blade. Well, what if the blade breaks when I'm cutting this? What do I do? Oh, we never ordered a blade. The machine's down for 2 days. No, you have a blade on the tool board. You can put the machine back into operation and continue on, and then replace it, and it'll come in a couple of days. Put it back on the board. You're good to go. So that's kind of the concept of the tag system on those tool boards. 2 important standards that that I had that I couldn't live without. Here I just call it 5.1, but the floor is not a production table. So here you have a lot of problems with this type of thing, even though they're making some fantastic fabrication there. That is a serious problem in a fab shop. And sometimes you can't avoid building on the floor. And I know the mechanical guys on the call will build some big things, but in this particular example, those items should be on production tables. And so you really just have to get it through to the guys that you just can't work on the floor. There are trip hazards, there's back injuries, there's just a lot of bad things are going to happen in this condition. And there's a lot of ways to solve this. But the first standard that I had was you just simply cannot use the floor as a production table. It's not allowed, so don't do it. And so that was one of the standards we had. The second one that meant a lot and was everything on the floor must be on pallets or wheels. And so in the facility, there was no place that you could go that you could find something sitting on the floor like this that has been stacked or staged and it's not on a pallet. You can't move it unless you pick up every item and move it. And I'm sure a lot of you guys are doing this already, but this is a huge standard that needs to be followed to the T in the fab shop. You have to be able to move stuff quickly and move it from work cell to work cell, move it from production, move it to shipping, move it to QA, whatever it is. But you cannot deal with a condition like this. And so that's kind of one of those magical things. Once you have the work cells and then you have somebody responsible in the work cell, and this is your standard, they will not let that happen. And they don't need their fab manager to come by and tell them to pick it all up. It's all the standards that have been created and the desire to improve every day. So those were some of the standards there. So I'll stop sharing and we can throw it out we got kind of at time here, but maybe any closing discussions that we want to have. Any questions from anybody?
We just had
James?
John Castro just commented that it was very lean. Obviously, principles underpinning that, and yeah, I mean, just anything you want to touch on there, Steve, just from Six Sigma or Agile or.
Yeah, there's a lot of things. I mean, I've been through a lot of training in lean and stuff, and it's all a lot of good stuff, really is. And it makes sense when you do it. But I'm not building a Toyota truck. And what I like to do is kind of take concepts from those lean trainings or Six Sigma and try to implement them in the shop, in some beneficial way for myself. So I do like the lean principles, and some of those are lean principles, but, I'm starting off slow, trying to take small bites at the apple to improve my shop, and adopting those principles when they make sense for me. Mm-hmm.
Definitely.
Awesome. Clay, any closing comments, or Andy, anybody?
No, I appreciate, Andy, you willing to share this information with everybody, and thank you for all your help with working with us, and as we build out not only the eVolve products, but also all the Foresight products and materials and everything else. So thank you again, and anybody that's interested in anything we can help you with, please let us know.
Awesome. Well, I don't want to keep everybody. I want to be respectful of your time, and we do appreciate you guys jumping on the call, and hope that it was beneficial for everyone. So thanks again, everyone.
Thanks,
awesome.
everybody.
And Steve, did you want to briefly mention about the 90-day trial that we currently have going on?
Yeah, I mean, sure. For eVolve Materials, we didn't talk about it today here on this call, but it is available now, and we are offering free 90-day trials for the materials procurement product that we have. So to do that, you just reach out to us, send out an email or to myself, steve.king@evolvemep.com, and we can get you guys set up on that free trial if you'd like. Awesome. Thank you, Ashley.
Yeah. Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Clay, Steve, Andy, and James. Great insight on this webinar. And just for everyone to know, we will have, you will be receiving a link for the recording of this webinar, either this afternoon or early tomorrow morning. But thanks, everyone, for attending. We appreciate you spending your time with us. Thanks again. Have a great rest of your day. Bye-bye.
Thanks, guys. Thanks, everyone.